Hi guys, I'm Katie Room from Periapsis Press, where I review indie sci-fi and fantasy books. Today for our book club, we are discussing Have Ye Offered Unto Me by Zachary Graffman, which is the sixth story in Silence of Starsong, Volume 1, Number 1, compiled by editor Joseph W. Knowles. If you're interested in joining my Discord and participating in this discussion in the future, you can reach out to me either on Twitter at RedHedgeDragon or through my website, periapsispress.com. Once again, we have Patrick from Cave to the Cross and also Michael Kane, author of After Moses. At the time of this recording, After Moses is on sale as part of the base book sale, hosted by Hans Schantz. I think that's how you say his last name. But by the time we've posted this video, it will already be over the sale. So I'm sorry about that, guys. But I wanted to take the opportunity to remind everyone to buy it at full price. And then to remind people that if you have bought indie books, first read them and then leave reviews so that when they go on sale, other readers can buy them with confidence, knowing that you enjoyed them. Okay.
Well worth it. Well worth it. Get the whole series. Maybe wait for the hardcover for the final one. Well, second to last one.
The fifth one, right? When does the hardcover for the fifth one come out?
Is it not already
Oh, is it?
posting? I think it is.
Oh,
You have me like suddenly like, oh no.
I've got to
Should
purchase
be.
tonight then.
Should be.
I didn't hear about this. I've been waiting.
Yeah.
Because I have... Make sure I move the right way here. Oh, you can't see it because of my chair.
Yeah, no. It definitely shows on
Stack
Amazon. I had a panic moment that it wasn't there. Clearly, my announcement wasn't loud enough on that.
Oh, it was not.
No, we both missed it apparently. Wow.
Elon.
So, the story "Have Ye Offered Unto Me," I think it pairs really well with Free Lunch thematically. So I'm pretty excited. Free Lunch is the one that we discussed in our last episode. Sort of a take your myths seriously, or you're going to be killed by them. Patrick, how do you feel about this story?
So I was mildly confused throughout most of it, and then it kind of come
Really?
up at the end, and then I was left a little bit more confused.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm okay when college professors are declared demonic entities. So it really had a lot of things going for it. But I think like a few of our other ones, it kind of rushes up to the end a little too quick for
Really?
me.
That's interesting. See, I thought this was paced pretty well. For me, this
Me
was pretty
too.
straightforward mishmash of, say, something like Lovecraft and C.S. Lewis.
I loved it.
Like that hideous strength or Piralandra. There's definitely some things that reminded me of those. Like, and we can talk about that later. But
I'm really excited about this now. To argue with Patrick.
That's why Patrick was late.
That's right.
So this time our hero is a little more skeptical, at least in the beginning, although he's no less informed than Sally was in Free Lunch. So we follow Thomas Harrison, who's a grad student working on his thesis in ancient Levantine. Is that how you pronounce that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Ancient Levantine religions. And his thesis is titled "The Practices and Rite of the Ancient Mullet Cultists." So right away.
That's your first mistake.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's just asking for trouble.
Right. Never worship the all god.
My ongoing theme is always know what genre you're in. And if you're an academic and that's what you're studying and you're in a fictional story, you've messed up.
A little weird occult horror, maybe.
Right. You stumbled into something that's been influenced by Lovecraft, probably.
As the story opens, he's discussing his thesis with his chair, Professor Feldman, who is a field archaeologist and maybe a little enthusiastic about the content. I thought that this opening setting was really well done. Uh, we're in the professor's study. There's both a literal and a figurative haze. It just felt very uh, moody, for lack of a better word.
You need the Bunsen burners on, the Elmeyer flask with the different colored liquids in it being pipetted into other ones for no reason whatsoever.
He's
Yeah.
not a mad scientist. He's just a smoker.
He's just really angry. Okay. He's not mad.
Everybody smoked to them.
Yeah, it actually took me a little bit further into the story before I realized that we weren't because smoking was pretty common up until pretty recently.
Pretty recently, yeah.
But I think this takes place in like the mid 1800s.
I felt it was a little later than that. I felt it was probably closer to the turn of the 20th century.
Okay.
But I don't remember why I thought that.
It felt like there was a lot more tweed in this story than robes.
Okay, wait. I think I might hold up. Okay, so the firearm mentioned is from the 1860s, so that really still doesn't narrow it a whole lot. So it could be late 1800s is probably the best.
Late, sure, yeah. I never looked up the firearm. So
there's one other historical reference, and if we pass by it again, I'll look it up and see. But I can't remember where it's at.
All right, sounds good. So Feldman is a little disappointed in Thomas's thesis. He specifically says that it hasn't captured the quote unquote spirit of the people and rights, and he's a little bit dismissive of the more skeptical tone that Thomas has taken towards the magic of it, right? The spiritualism. And I like right away, this puts me in a sympathetic position with Thomas. I've been in those awkward conversations with a professor who doesn't like your paper, but they don't want to like do your thinking for you. So like they, instead of answering your questions, they sort of ask you questions back. And then you leave their office and you're like, I feel like I lost something.
One of the pastors at my church is on his like third round of revisions for his prospectus on his PhD dissertation. So it's like, he's like, come on, we gotta finish getting this. So I feel that too, because that's a weekly conversation in the office. It's just like, okay, here's where it's at.
Oh, yikes.
It's when you just throw it up in the air and you start over.
I think Thomas is sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, he's described as kind of doughy. Is that right? Like, is that...
I missed that if that's the case, or else I don't remember it.
Yeah, I kind of took him as like a neurotic guy.
He's very frustrated.
Yeah.
Just, it's kind of, not just with Feldman, but kind of in general. Why did I think he was... Oh, well, doesn't matter, I suppose, but...
He has a doughy form combined with a smoky atmosphere was beginning to produce an uncomfortable sweat. So Thomas was.
There we go.
I was right.
Down to the word, too.
Sometimes I think the alien is like a Chewbacca, and it's actually like a classic green space alien. And sometimes I remember the exact word. Oh, goodness. Okay, so they're interrupted by Feldman's secretary, Edith Shellstone, who is a Catholic and a little overenthusiastic about spiritualism. It's mentioned that she's a lay authority on sort of mystic stuff, a member of a Rosicrucian society.
Yeah.
And basically, she's looking for a spiritual experience.
Yeah, she was the authority on every mystic corner not expressly forbidden by her Catholic conviction. Sounds like she's stretching things a little too far. Also, not genre savvy.
Yep. She's
As
actually
we'll find out.
she actually is kind of the only one who's not too genre savvy. I feel like
That's true.
That's everybody else kind of knows what's like what they're playing with a little bit here.
To an extent. So Thomas is just he's pretty much just a materialist, right?
He wants to
he's
be.
doing his he's right. Well, he's
Right.
doing his paper, he's doing his work, and he's running up against this professor that you start to get the feeling is okay, he believes this stuff, right? And then you have this third main character, the girl who is enthusiastic about all the odd little corners of things perhaps she shouldn't be. So they're definitely there's definitely a contrast between the three of them, and yeah. Continue. I'm trying to find what I was looking for again.
So during the discussion with Feldman before they're interrupted, Feldman kind of gets a little manic.
Yeah.
Very, very enthusiastic. And
about Moloch.
Yes.
Red flag.
About
exactly.
About the field research that he's done has sort of given him the perspective that the kind of dry academic tone that Thomas definitely wants in his paper is undesirable, and that Thomas he wants him to make changes.
He wants him to sacrifice goats himself.
Start with goats and then you move up.
All right.
So Thomas is invited to observe Feldman perform some field work. And it's at the old observatory by the obelisk at midnight.
Red flags. And to be fair, Thomas is not really into this. And I don't think he's into it again for the red flag, something really bad is going to happen. He's more the red flags, I'm not into this junk and this guy's a little crazy. I just want to pass my class.
I have a slightly different take, but it's because of details later. So
okay.
Edith, on the other hand, is like eating it up. She is going to go to this observation and watch Feldman do this groundbreaking research.
Yeah.
As professor meetings usually end, Feldman has class and basically shoves Thomas out. Thomas is left a little disoriented. His next tact is to sort of talk to the secretary so that he can kind of make excuses to her about why he's not going to go in the evening. I think that's also, he may be attracted to her.
Yeah, it's pretty well implied that he's definitely attracted, and she's disappointed that he's not is into the same things. It's like he's made a courtship error by not being intensely interested in the occult.
Oh, this is a reverse Mulder and Scully right here.
Yep. So he ends up offending her. He really feels that his career is being setback by the professor, and it's all couched in very academic terms. So like he doesn't talk about it, but like it's a close POV narrative. So there's mention of like a professor's niche interests kind of driving things instead of him being able to take charge of his own research.
I mean, as a grad student, that's what you get paid for. Oodles of dollars.
So that didn't work. Talking to Edith, he decides. Well, he goes outside and smokes. Basically, through this entire book, he's smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And then he decides to talk to the department head, Dr. Alistair Grant, and try and get his chair reassigned. There's a couple of details about Feldman is already a new chair to him. He had a chair previously. Not sure what happened to him.
Mysterious disappearances.
Well, it's not really important to the story, we assume.
But it's an ongoing stress in his academic career. This is not the first time he's had problems with the guy that's supposed to be immediately over his research.
Right. Yep. And then, but Grant refuses to reassign him when he learns that it is Feldman, and he becomes a little bit panicky about it.
Yeah, real standoffish. He's like, conversation over. We're not talking about this. Good day.
Yeah, and asks him to give Feldman his excuse as to why he's not attending the evening's research session. So this is not something that Feldman has cooked up just with Edith, but has also invited the department head to. And the department head is also trying to get out of it. There's a really funny line.
He also knows you don't meet at the obelisk at midnight when Moloch is concerned.
Yep. There's a really funny line where Thomas sort of thinks to himself that the entire evening felt cursed, academically speaking.
Yeah.
So Thomas returns frustrated to his rooms. And this is where I got like a bigger picture of time-wise the setting, because he takes a hansom cab. He has rooms with a landlady, and he receives a telegram, and there's still so much smoking.
When he has an icebox dinner, the old icebox.
The telegram is from Edith. She urges him to come to the field research session, and says, "Don't be a pompous ass." And this is where I think we start to get a really interesting picture of Thomas's character. So you guys will have to tell me if you think I'm totally off base here. Up until now, Thomas has been like the skeptic, but like he's not like Sally's family, where he's determined for everything to be fine, right? The first thing is Edith's telegram makes him angry. Before this, he was swearing at the two professors, Feldman and Grant. But then when he gets Edith's telegram, he's angry at her, and specifically, sort of vaguely, implies that she's being too trusting of Feldman. And I think that sort of reveals that he knows that things aren't right with this, whether or not he
suspects remotely what's going to happen.
Well, his paper's on rights, right? Like, so like, he can't be completely ignorant.
Well, and then like in his
Okay,
fit,
okay, he
he
could.
grabs.
There's two things. He could suspect. I think it's fair to say he may. Okay, so very shortly, he rummages through his desk and his hand
Yeah,
brushes against two objects he's desperately been trying to ignore all evening. Number one is the revolver, the transfer service revolver. Number two is his mother's rosary.
Right.
Okay,
which
so
I don't
yes,
appreciate a place in probably Britain where you can have revolvers, yet these days you cannot carry on college campuses. I'm just saying. What did we lose? Maybe we need to bring Moloch back. I'm just saying.
Patrick.
Just
so
to
yeah,
Britain.
I think
Just to
okay. So
Britain.
it's perfectly fair to say I agree with this, Katie, that it's fair to say that he suspected foul play was afoot if he's been thinking about this revolver and what he knows of Molech, because he is at least an academic expert in making on the subject, right? I don't know that he I don't know that he suspects that things are going to get weird, other than he clearly has a background with Catholicism, and he's like, this is not right. This is at the least devil worship, right? Is what
Sure.
he's thinking here.
Sure. I
So I don't know that he's expecting
because
it to go Lovecraft on him,
right.
but
But like because the rosary is included, right? Because it's these
sure,
two
I agree.
objects he's trying not to think about.
Right, right, right.
I think probably the rosary represents like the spiritual reality of things that he's
He,
trying to
he
avoid.
at least knows that what's going on is very wrong on at least a fundamental spiritual level. Is this guy should not be doing this? Like, this is creepy. This is weird. This doesn't need to happen. At the
Right.
very least,
Right.
right,
Yeah. Well, he's looking for protection from both these items, both the physical, so his
right,
naturalism, and then his mother's Catholicism, which is deeply rooted into his spiritual psyche. He probably grew up
right.
with it. Edith, he probably has some uh, maybe slight fascination with him because not to get too Freudian, but maybe reminds him of some other familiar female in his life, and
See,
she's young and
Patrick
attractive.
pretends like he doesn't like it, and then he goes with the psychological deep dive. Here he's
if,
like,
if I'm citing Freud, I'm grasping at straws right now. So,
Okay.
if Freud is on the sacrifice table, you know what? Maybe I'm just gonna look the other
So I'm gonna, since we're talking about psyche, I'm gonna go in a different direction.
oh
the
boy,
id. We're going in the id.
No. So earlier when he is after his interaction with Grant, he kind of has this little rant to himself. Um, all he had asked for was a quiet little career to burrow himself down into, someplace to settle mentally, a nest to line with reams of comfortably specialized abstraction, a retreat from the world of credulous peddlers of nonsense. The entire point
mm,
of the university environment, after all, was the separation of the intellectual, allowing their own set a respite of sanity from the philosophical estate sale of the world. And uh, I think kind of like the wording here, like the word choice, burrow, settle, retreat, separation, and like respite of sanity. I think he is looking for something specifically to escape from something. And the rosary and the gun makes me think that it's an internal problem. And the reason is because the rosary is wrapped around the gun. Why do you keep a rosary wrapped around a gun? It would suggest to me, at least, that he might have a problem with thinking about suicide.
Mm, interesting.
coiled in the black beads of his mother's rosary. That is not a detail I noticed, and you may be right. I would have to read it again and really think about that.
I really
But you may be right on
I
that.
really think that this story is more about man versus himself than man versus evil Moloch worshiper. Although that element is definitely there.
I was about to say, it's
Spoilers.
not about
Right,
Lord versus Moloch.
right.
This isn't a symbolic Moloch
Right,
worshiper.
right.
Which I think that's one of my problems is well, okay, I don't want to get sidetracked. So suicide or the offing of oneself for YouTube purposes
What?
in Minecraft. You have to say all these stupid terms to
The
try and trick.
unaliving. The
Yeah.
unaliving is how the kids say it.
Yeah.
Yep, that is true. Those are all things that I've heard online.
Mhm.
uh Patrick, did you have something you want to say before we move on from this? Because I don't have anything else. I was just
Okay. Well, I mean that I can't top that, but I want more either evil or hiding of evil. Like I would like to kind of maybe see the flashes of belief because it just seems like he's talking to Indiana Jones who's like, well, we're gonna go to these rites, but if you don't know much about like this topic, you're thinking like, well, rites is like we're gonna kind of read from the Necronomicon in Latin, and we're only gonna be surprised when the Deadites come out afterwards. You're not I never get the hint that this doctor is like one of the worst parts of Temple of Doom is the Kali Ma priest who kind of like comes out of nowhere and he's just like, oh, I'm evil, and you're like, who are you again? And so I kind of would like uh that almost like sycophantic um, detail from the professor to kind of clue you in a little bit more into the reason why he's nervous because it just seems like he's just coming about with like, well, I'll bring a gun and a rosary. So that's I just wish for a little bit more. If you know the ending, this makes sense. And I don't think it's supposed to be, well, once you got to the ending, you were supposed to look back and go, oh, I get it. I think we are supposed to kind of be clued in the way. But if you don't know who Moloch is, if you don't understand what type of rites is being performed here, you're just like, well, so what's going on again? So
that's very true.
well,
Uh and I actually liked that. So
there you
you're
go.
right. They don't talk about the what danger there might be to justify thinking about a gun or to be angry with Edith for being too trusting uh, in any kind of overt terms. We've lost Michael, but we'll do our
We'll say
best.
a prayer for
um, I gotta scroll down because my notes on this are farther down here. Um,
him.
I think that leaving it unspecified until like when we're actually describing the things that are happening uh, gives that section more urgency and power and like a horror feel
Sure.
than if it had been talked about at all previously. I don't know that it needs more by way of uh, like foreshadowing because like you already get a sense that things are about to be not good. But I don't know. I know like I know I at least from other fiction, right? Like I haven't done the research on Moloch rights, but I am familiar enough to know like okay, this is the bad guy, right? Like need um
The Bible, Alex Jones, and our politicians have all told us that Moloch is the bad
yeah.
guy. So yeah.
So maybe somebody who wasn't familiar but I don't know.
So I guess if it's supposed to be kind of Lovecraftian, right? So he, I'm would I'm not trying to compare this author to Lovecraft by any stretch or bounds, but at least with like a Lovecraft feel, he sets a tone of an atmosphere where it's like, oh, this is a really creepy setting, and all of a sudden, like fish people appear, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I can kind of see fish people appearing being in the story here now because he's kind of set that like spooky tone to it, where
Well,
with if I'm just
I don't know where the conversation is again, but that's why I said there's a Lovecraft, kind of influence to it.
I'm
That's why
taking
we
and
felt
running
that.
with it. So you're stepping in on fish people. So
Okay.
Patrick feels that there's not enough setup for what is about to occur. That
yeah.
because they don't talk about overtly like what
Well,
the
I don't need overtly.
well
I'm okay with it. But
So,
he rolls up his sleeve and he's got like runes cut into his arm. So it's like, oh, okay, like there's a little bit more to it than just like, oh, it's a kooky professor. Like I've had kooky professors
I
who know
mean,
every single TI 80
there was
calculator.
clearly there was clearly a sacrifice about to happen. He's floating in the air and sprouts devil horns. I'm not
we're
sure
not
what
there
else
yet.
you're
You're
wanting.
getting at the end.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I'm talking about everything before that.
we're
Right.
we,
So
we haven't
It's not overt enough
we
for me,
haven't left the
okay?
apartment. Thomas hasn't even
so
started drinking
okay.
yet.
So what do you say? Are you? Oh, my bad. So are you saying? So you're saying you're surprised with where it goes, like you weren't expecting where it was going?
Because I'm following the
I'm just trying
character
to.
and I'm reading these he's frustrated with a professor. He's frustrated
Uh-huh.
with the dean who won't let him out of it. He's frustrated with the chick who he has different motives. And then he comes to a gun and a rosary and he's frustrated with it. And it's just like, well, I don't have any reason to know why you're frustrated with that until I get to the end and read back into that, which might be the goal. But it's like it's like the 66 Batman where the Riddler gives you a riddle and only Robin can know the answer because of course Gotham has a cotton candy factory. You would only know that if you were Robin living in Gotham who knows that there's a cotton candy factory. But I kind of like to know. I kind of would like to be able to solve Riddler's riddle too.
I mean, look, this professor clearly believed this stuff and is meeting at the obelisk at midnight to complete rites of Molech, and he has a young woman there present.
Yes.
I mean,
Now,
he clearly is supposed to. I mean, there's obviously a reason to be weirded out by this, right?
somewhat.
Like,
Well,
like this felt telegraphed
and
a mile away to me.
I and like the presence of both the gun and the rosary implies that they will both be needed, right? So that
Oh yeah, Chekhov's gun and rosary is
right.
in play.
So there like we don't really understand I until like looking back, I suppose, like what Thomas is thinking when he's frustrated about the gun and the rosary. But the fact that they're there and the fact that he takes them implies that okay, we're things are about to go way off the rails. This is not just like sacrificing a goat, right? Like this is going to be a little more intense. I think there's another.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't. I guess I don't feel this, Patrick. I'm okay.
That's all right.
I
I
don't
mean,
feel it.
clearly everyone here has been wrong for multiple short stories, and I've been the one that's correct. And all the authors have agreed with this, or at least made it so that I'm not wrong, which makes me right. So,
I think there is another element to it too, and that is how we as readers perceive Thomas. If things were a little more overt, like if we were more confident of the evil and of the danger to Edith and of like the necessity of Thomas going and helping her, we would be more inclined to judge him as a poor heroic character instead of sympathizing with him through his frustration because he's on an arc. This is a short story with a main character who has an arc, right? Like he goes from being this academic who's
Doughy.
doughy who is he just wants to do his research and then have this nice cushy job where he can escape from the world And
He kind of reminds me of Dan the Destroyer.
he's experiencing a frustration with having his goal foiled, and part of that frustration is with a damsel who needs to be rescued. Like, if we knew more clearly that she needs him to rescue her, I at least would be like, you're a horrible person. Like, why are you even
Yeah.
thinking about this?
And on the way out, the professor goes, "Hey, don't forget your ceremonial robes and your cover yourself with a little bit of blood on your wrist." Like, all right, well, I mean, so we know Molech as fine, upstanding citizens that we are. We know we're in a story, but I just don't think the character knows enough.
But also remember that this guy is at least semi-professional academic in this field that probably has an idea what rites of Molech means. Right? Like if somebody said, hey Patrick, we're gonna meet at the park at this obelisk at midnight and perform this rite, you would be rightfully concerned despite not being in a story, right? Like there's definitely some weirdness to that.
Yes, but I've seen the
And
politicians
then
dance
later the
around Molech.
next guy, and then the next guy, the when he talks to the was it the department chair, the department chair is behaving strangely surrounding this whole event too, right? So that further heaps on what's going on. Why I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do that. But yet, then he gets the message, the telegram from the girl. The girl's like, hey, I'm going, you should come, it's gonna be a blast, we'll have a lot of fun. And he's like, no, we won't, where's my gun and rosary? Right? Like, this feels like a pretty reasonable progression to at least be weirded out. Again, maybe he's not expecting tentacles or anything, but at the very least, at the very least, it feels like foul play. Is what he's thinking anyway.
And I think the way that the rite itself sort of plays out supports that, right? Like even like knowing what we assume he knows about the elements of the rite, like he's still surprised and scandalized by them, by
Right.
meeting them, right? So yeah, I'm satisfied with it, even if Patrick isn't.
Listen, if you just want the banality of evil in your stories.
It's clearly evil, right? But like it's
Wait, let's just hear this Molech guy out. Maybe he's got some good ideas.
that's not what I said. uh okay, so Thomas has a drink, a double. And then he
As one should do in this circumstance before going to the rite of Molech.
and
Patrick's about to come up with his theory that none of what actually happens
Oh
happens,
man,
and that
you
he's
foiled my perfect ending. Where
and that
everything
he's
takes
just,
place, and it was like, no, we're closing the portal. Why
he's
did
just
you kill
drunk
the
and
professor?
yeah.
The professor's the good guy in this.
nope.
Continue.
He was trying to close everything.
So then he goes to the observatory under the obelisk at midnight. And rather predictably, Feldman's already started. He's got a magic circle drawn in blood, braziers burning flesh, although it's never stated what flesh, whose flesh,
Whose
whose
blood?
blood. Edith is on
Goats. I'm gonna go with goats.
Let's go with goats. Edith is unconscious in the middle of the circle. She's got cuts on her arms, and she is naked from the waist up, which I think there's a really nice moment where Thomas is just deeply offended for her.
Good guy,
Yeah.
Thomas.
The Joey man has some class.
Thomas's response. Well, okay. Feldman talks as villains do. Offers Thomas an academic prestige in founding a new type of archaeology. I don't know what.
Join me and we will rule the galaxy as father and son.
But
Listen, the death god will acquiesce to us, and we'll just serve him, and it'll be fine.
That never goes badly.
Never, never.
Thomas' response is more anger, and at first he's angry about like Edith, right, and the affront to her dignity, but then like it grows beyond that. We get a joyous rage, and he's filled with like purpose and a quote, dire responsibility.
I know Michael hasn't talked about prose yet, but let me read. A laugh crawled its way through the professor's throat like a serpent through a nursery door. Like
That's a good line.
that is a great line.
That is a good line.
That's pretty creepy.
There was a centipede in our daughter's room a few months ago. We were putting her to bed. She was the least one concerned with it. And it was like a 3-inch 4-inch centipede. Like, Mama and I moved quick.
Yo.
She was like, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" Just like crawling right past her.
Yikes. Oh. I thought that
Centipedes are unnecessarily scary.
Yeah. Ugh. I thought that the sort of purpose and sort of righteous anger that Thomas feels and like kind of feels good about feeling was interesting because I have found it to be a repetitive element in the indie fiction that I've reviewed. I think right now, especially among like male authors and readers, and you guys can correct me as a male author and reader. I think there's like a real desire for like heroic characters who experience like righteous anger when confronted by evil and then are able to act on it. I think right now, like in our culture, men in particular feel a little bit like they can't act against stuff that they feel is evil. Like the way that our politics are and society in general.
Fiction as an escape? Are you sure?
It's just an interesting element that I've seen repeated over a couple of different stories. Okay, so like Michael Kane mentioned, Feldman floats in the air.
Yep.
Horns grow out of his head. He's about to light Edith on fire.
It might not have been obvious enough for Patrick to bring the gun, but for Katie
When
and
he
I
started
would have the gun
talking
just from the setup
Canaanite.
of the story, and we would have been vindicated.
The Canaanite language is when I would have been like, "Hey, wait a minute, he's the bad
guy." So then Thomas shoots him in the face until he dies.
Yeah, it's a little grisly for a minute
too.
I kind of wanted like this. No, I kind of wanted more. Like that's it.
What? Okay.
And he has to place the crucifix in the hole to scare the demon out of him or something. Like that's it. You just shoot the bad guy and you're like, well, that works. It's like where Biff shoots Marty McFly and he's like, huh? I did it. And then
It's a gun wrapped in a rosary, Patrick.
does that bless the bullets? Is it like holy water?
So, okay, so have y'all read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy?
Oh yeah.
Katie?
I keep meaning to. So this is
Okay,
where I
okay.
publicly admit that I have
So-
not yet.
So this story strongly reminds me of of first, that hideous strength, because that hideous strength, the first book takes place on Mars, and the second book takes place in Venus, and the third book takes place on Oxford with basically devil worshipping professors, right? And right, so there's a similarity there, obviously a little bit in that setting. But the solution in Piralandra, Patrick, do you remember basically what happens in Piralandra?
I didn't like the third book. I erased that one from my memory.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. Okay, so look, the second book, right? The basic setup for the book, and I'm going to spoil
It's
something
fine.
in the book.
It's
And if
not gonna
Katie, if
hurt
you
me.
just can't handle it, I know that's something that doesn't bother you, but it is fascinating.
Tolkien challenged him to write it, said he would write a sci-fi book. Lewis did. Tolkien was like, nah. So I'm just saying, Lewis, clearly the better guy in this one.
So Venus is having its Garden of Eden moment.
Yeah.
Okay? The first man and the first woman are there, and they have not fallen to sin. And so the evil professor from the first book is sent to Venus to basically play the role of the serpent, and the hero is sent to basically stop that from happening. And so a lot of the book is the evil professor, the good professor, and Venus's Eve having these long debates basically about to obey God or not to obey God. And what the book gets right more than anything, as it becomes more and more clear as it goes on, is that the evil professor, it's not just the evil professor. He's demon possessed, right? Because anytime that Eve goes away, he basically can't keep himself together anymore, and the good guy will find him over down by the riverbank using his fingernails to like tear up frogs, like just doing little petty evil things, just really. And it gets weirder and weirder and grosser, and ultimately the hero ultimately comes to the conclusion that he just has to remove the vessel that's here to tempt this world's Eve. And so they have this basically epic knockdown, drag down fight, and he bashes his head in with a rock in a cave. And there's this weird kind of anticlimax to it, in that you're like, really? That was the solution after all these philosophical debates? But it was getting to that, well, is the way Lewis was envisioning it. The demonic needed a person in order to speak to Eve here, right? And so the hero is finally like, okay, if I can just get rid of the person, if I just get rid of the body that's causing all this problem. So that's what reminded me of that, and that ultimately the solution was quite simple as, okay, this guy's doing something evil and I have to put a bullet in his head right now. So he blows his jaw off and then keeps shooting once he's down on the ground. Problem solved. That's what I was like. When I'm reading this, I'm like, this is like Lovecraft crossed with Lewis.
But if you stick a
Go
rosary in it, you got to use it.
Definitely. It was symbolic. It was symbolic, Patrick.
So was the
But
gun.
definite-
The gun was symbolic too.
You definitely do need to read the Space Trilogy someday, because it is very strange and weird, and like everything Lewis, it's like the little moments you're like, that was really insightful. Like, oh, that single line was really insightful.
Yeah.
So, and that hideous strength is great. Don't let Patrick lie to you. There's a bear. There's a bear that mauls a bunch of evil people at the end. It's kind of great.
Yeah, I need to read it.
Trust me.
I'll just add it to my TBR.
But yeah, so that
Just do the
So
first
that's-
chapter.
that's-
Just do the first chapter. You'll be fine.
that's what I got. When I got there, I was like, "Yep, this is Lewis." Because here's this guy's problem: is He is going. It's simple. Remove the conduit. Get rid of the conduit. The person that is allowing themselves to be a conduit for evil. Put a bullet in them. Put all the bullets in them. Problem solved.
The falling action is really nice too. You get the
Mhm.
constable, who is very British feeling.
Yeah, that was. There were a few things that made me feel it was in Britain, but once I got to the constable, I definitely felt Constable Langston. That is as British sounding thing as you can get.
How big is his mustache? That's
I
what
think
I must
was
know.
there a quad mentioned too?
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody mentioned the quad, and that's a very British term. There were a few
Yeah,
things.
yeah. The department head Grant shows up to tell Thomas he's no longer welcome at the university, but he doesn't get
Well,
arrested.
Grant, if you just come with your gun, you could have dealt with your little cultist problem yourself, bud. But you decided to stay home.
uh, and then Thomas breaks the horns off Feldman's head and keeps them.
That was a weird detail.
It's a very
I
weird
don't really
detail.
understand that detail. And what's weird about it is he says he couldn't imagine then or later what he was thinking as he mechanically removed and pocketed them.
Like, okay, then.
I like that the constable probably saw the horns on the guy was like, yeah, this was justifiable homicide. Like, yeah, I'm not taking you in for this. You did the right
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And then he gets to talk with Edith. Well, smoke with her because that's like I
That's
said,
what you do.
it
That's
smokes
what you
the
do.
entire story. Uh, I really liked the last few lines. I feel like there was some really nice resolution. He dimly remembered that. He lit a cigarette and noticed his hands stopped trembling. He dimly remembered that his career was over. He was happy. Edith will St. Anne's hold mass tomorrow. She smiled shyly. Like
She's cut up. She's bloody. She's been captured. And he's still hitting on her. Man.
not just hitting on her, like
But he's taking her to church.
Yeah. Hey, let's
You
pray
got
together.
her out of the cultist thing, and he's taking her to church.
It's just a lot
That's how
of
you do it, boys.
really nice elements of like things are going to be better from this point out. Like it's not just that the immediate evil has been dealt with, but like Thomas is like he's done with whatever he was doing in academia, whether that was like an actual desire to be in a career there or an escape from something else. So he's definitely going to be going in a new direction with his life. He has
Well, sure. I mean, he went from the nichiest of niche that would either give him like a full ride professorship or he'd be a barista at Starbucks when it comes about. And he just learned that Satan is real, that God is real. And so he's just like, well, maybe that 160-page thesis that I have, maybe I can shelve that and find something
And he
better to
got
do with my.
and he got the
and he
girl.
got the girl. Yep.
That's the.
Oh, no, she's going to break up with him in like 3 weeks.
What?
She's going to find a nice. Yeah.
It's awful.
Yep.
That's awful.
It's Speed 2.
No.
You're thrust together in a relationship. You have the moment, and then Speed 2 comes about, and then there's no sign of Keanu Reeves.
He also has a.
I'm not going to dignify that.
Yeah,
With a
I'm
response.
moving. I'm moving right past it. When he specifically said like he's happy, which is a completely new emotion.
Yeah.
For this, I mean, like there was the joyous rage, but that hardly counts. Yeah. So
I like this
I
one.
really liked
Yeah.
this one.
Like I said, it was Lovecraft crossed with Lewis. Oh, and in the little bio at the end, right?
Yo,
Zachary Graffman is a lifelong storyteller transplanted into the American South with his wonderful wife and 3 kids. All his life, he has been haunted by his meetings with Maleldo,
I did look that
which
up.
is a
I was
reference
like,
to the space
yeah.
trilogy. That is, I think, the term for Jesus in Old Solar. So that's
Oh, so he can be Jesus, but not anybody that I happen to mention can be Jesus. Oh wait, no, it's Lewis. Sorry.
Tolkien and Lewis had very
I'll have a
different.
knockdown, drag down on Bombadil someday, I guess. You know you're wrong, right? You're just pulling our leg,
I will
right?
take any other side than what you have. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Both of my notes that I had that were like overarching things, we ended up talking about at specific spots. So yeah, I really liked this one, and I was really surprised to hear that Patrick was less pleased with it. But it hit everything for me. It went off the rails, just like I like my short stories to do. Uh,
Exactly.
I
Get in, get out, punch hard.
yeah, yeah.
Use a gun if you must.
I felt that the setting was utilized effectively, and the character development was really strong for a short story. Um,
Mm,
you know, I I love a hero who rises to the occasion. So
even a doughy
even a
hero.
doughy hero.
Especially a doughy hero that rises to the occasion.
Oh, so he's Sam in this. Let's see.
Every man. He's every man.
Yeah.
Minus the interest in ancient Levantine cults.
Right. Hopefully that's not a common
Everyone
hobby.
here knows who Moloch is, so I'm just saying. We have no room to talk here.
I'm not writing any papers on it anytime soon. That is true that I do know. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else like to wrap up with?
I still,
Good.
even my qualms with some of the stories that we've read, it's still just a really, really good collection of like
Mm.
very diverse, like, and I, I will do the Katie Room thing and say I know Joseph Knowles, and not to drop names, but so I'm completely tainted by liking him as an individual. But I think he's done a really good job of picking these stories to just have a really good wide breadth of different, but also what he does in the back of the book, which we all agree should be at the front of the book, um, of kind of tying these. Uh, let the individual author show you what he or she can do, and so I definitely appreciate for this. And then I heard he had something like was some crazy number, thousands of submissions for the the next volume, and just to comb through all of this
Wow.
to get to these, I would think would just be so hard to try and find those like kind of interlocking threads.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with, so far with the overall tone, uh, and I would say that it, in general, my experience with indie anthologies has been very positive in this in the same way. Uh, when there is someone overseeing the project, there is
Mm.
a very nice, like the stories are nice, right? they're not they're not trying to make you they're these are authors telling a story that is shorter as opposed to like some like short story format, right? Where like the like with the twist or like the uncomfortable feeling at the end, uh, and they are entertaining, and I have enjoyed what we've read so far, and I'm looking forward to reading more.
Mhm.
We encourage you to buy the Silence and Starsong magazine if you haven't yet. I haven't read anything else by Zachary Graffin, but if this sounds at all interesting to you, I encourage you to check out his other work. I think he has a Substack that he releases on, and that's like a basic Google search. So if I'm wrong, hopefully he'll correct me. um, again, if you guys are interested in joining our discussion, just reach out to me. We would love to have you. We
Someone else for Patrick to disagree with.
right.
Reach out to Katie.
I was gonna suggest that maybe there's somebody out there who would take Patrick's side, so it wasn't just 2-on-1 all the time.
Which again shows how amazing my takes are to go 2 versus 1, to be so confident, so correct that it's like battling air.
I'm less about the takes than the utterly baffling pop culture references that surface. There's always at least one that I'm like,
You are welcome.
I think the
You are
Robin with the cotton candy factory today was the one that I had no reference at all there.
66 Batman? No.
I mean, I'm sure I've seen a few episodes over the years, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's okay. Just have an older father, not as older mother, and then be a child of the 80s, and you just hit everything, every genre.
All right. Thank you, Patrick and Michael. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Please leave a comment. Let us know if you like the discussion, if you have your own thoughts on this story. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. All right. Guys, have a great day.